Tahalo for Lava, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Lava Lava, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the vibrant people and cultures of the Pacific. I'm your host, Michael Tan, and joining me today are Spencer and Ati Moore. Before we get started, a quick reminder, if you enjoy the show, to please follow, subscribe, and leave a review. Now let's jump straight into it. Today we are so excited to welcome to the Behind the Lava Lava podcast, Frankie Corrigan and Jessica Ferguson of the Listen to Frankie and Jess podcast. Ta'alofa, Jessica and Frankie.
Thanks for having us.
So Frankie and Jess, could you walk us through, we're going to start from the beginning of your upbringing and personal life. Where are you guys from?
Sure. So I'm from Arizona, born and raised there. I lived there for I think 27 years, something like that. But yeah, just loved growing up there, and a lot of family still there, and knew from a young age that I wanted to be on the radio. I loved music. It was my escape. I had my little gray boom box, and that was my dream, to be on the radio one day. And then I ended up graduating from Arizona State with a broadcasting degree and wanted to be on air. But of course, you can't really start there. It's kind of hard. So I worked at a radio network for 4 years, made some good connections there. And my boyfriend, future fiance, and now husband also made some connections through my connections. And that's how we made it to Utah.
So I am from Detroit, Michigan. Let's see. I knew at about 14 or 15 that I wanted to go into radio. And I think that was from my dad, the love that he had for like old time radio. And I didn't figure that out until I was in my 30s, that I probably went into that business because my dad loved it so much. But I went to a broadcasting school right out of high school because I didn't want to go the college route. I knew I wanted to go into broadcasting. Long story short, worked at a lot of little itty bitty markets around Detroit, interned in Detroit, then had to move away from Detroit to kind of get the career started. So I was in a lot of different cities: Fort Myers, Jacksonville, DC, Charlotte, back to Fort Myers, and then out to Salt Lake City in 1997, and fell in love with Utah. And we were at that radio station for a long time, almost 26 years for me, and almost 18 years together with Jess on the morning show. And yeah, just love where we live. And that's one of the reasons we chose to stay. We didn't want to leave Utah. So this is our home.
Thank you for sharing. Now I want to try to mix things up. You guys have introduced yourself, but now I want to go around the room with our cast members, and this will serve as our icebreaker moment. The question the topic I'm going to bring up is, what is a memorable moment in your life growing up? So I'm going to start off with Ati.
Well, thank you very much. Memorable moment back in the islands of American Samoa. Hi, guys. I'm originally from American Samoa, like majority of our podcast members. So growing up back in the islands, if you guys not familiar, American Samoa is U.S. territory, 5 hours south of Hawaii. Long plane ride there. If you're from Utah, of course, and long plane ride for me because I'm in Texas. But one of the best memorable moments was saving my brother in a fight. And and this was around age, I believe 10 or 11 years old. Oh, no, this is age 8. This is, I got back. I was in the States from 95 to 2000. And then around 2001 was when it happened. And we were walking down because in American Samoa, we had to wake up early in the morning to catch the school bus to go home. And when I mean early, I mean not to go home, but go to school. And then we would catch the same bus coming back from school. However, though, early in the mornings, we would have to wake up like around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning just to catch the school bus. Because if you miss the school bus, you're either walking to school. And when I mean walking, I mean you're walking about 10 to 20 miles. And this is no lie. This is a long walk. And our school was in Masifau. I'm originally from Sailele. Not a lot of our listeners know this, but I'm from Sailele. Masifau is a village over from our village, and if we missed the bus, we had to walk there. If my parents, we had a vehicle, but my dad was strict. He was an army guy too as well for 35 years, retired, and back in 2017. But he was one of those guys where if you didn't wake up early too as well, hey, he was leaving the house. So when we would wake up, miss the bus, miss the truck, we would walk to school, and we would walk without any clothes. We had our uniforms for school, but so we would wrap those up, put in our bags, and then just wear, our boxers and our tent tops, to go to school. And once we got there, we changed into our uniforms, and then start school. We would get there. We would leave it around 6. Usually we wake up, and we get there like around 7:30, right when the bell for the school to start. The school usually starts at 7:30, 8 o'clock. And so anyhow, I see all this. We school finishes. We were walking. The bus usually supposed to come drop us to the village after school, but for somehow this day the bus stopped in on top of the hill, which was about 5 miles from our village. So we had to walk from where the top of the hill where the bus stopped, and then we had to walk home. So on our way down, I was in the back with my cousins and my brother and a couple other folks in our kids in our school were ahead of us, and we got down to Masosi, and there's another village before our village, and there was a bus stop there. The family that was behind there, I guess whatever was going on, some commotion, the kids, because we were younger this time, and the older kids there came out and started yelling at the group of kids, which my brother included, and they were just saying all sorts of bad names, and because they felt that they owned the bus stop that was down in front of their house. So we usually, before we get to our village, we would stop at that bus stop and then just relax, chill, maybe from the long walk, from where the bus dropped us off. We would stop there, and so my brother and a couple other kids in my village would stop there, and they were just, I guess they were not being loud, but they were at a public spot. This is a public spot, and the house where these adult kids were, they're right behind them. So the adult kids came out, started yelling at them, started saying names, and then one of the older kids had my brother in a clothesline grip, like he was held him like this. And as soon as I got there, one of the kids was like, "Hey man, your brother's getting beat up." I got there, and he was getting clothesline like this, and he was about, from my looks, he was about to pass out. So I jumped in there, tap tap. And then, I was like, tap tap everybody, and then, start kicking this guy, side kick this guy. And there was like 3 of them, and it was only me. And there was a lot of other kids just standing and looking. And that was like, to me, it was like kind of like a proud moment, because up until that point, me and my brother, we used to fight a lot. Because I stayed in, I was, in my earlier years from 95 to 2000, I was in Cali, and he was by himself down in American Samoa. So when I came down, he kind of resented me, didn't see me as his older brother, whatnot, because, I was kind of foreign to him, I didn't really belong there. So up to that point, we were always getting into arguments every single day. And when I mean arguments, I mean, like, he would come at me with a machete, and I would, this is no lie, this is straight up.
Yikes.
This is definitely a Samoan story.
Yeah, this is a true story. So he would come at me with a machete. That's how bad our fights were. But up until that point, all the kids that he knew that he were growing up with him, none of them hopped in to help him. So I was there. I helped them. I kicked I remember it was an older, I don't know, it was a guy or a girl or whatever, but I got him away, and then, it was just me there. And then, I saved them that day pretty much. And then since that day, me and my brother was just like this till this day, like real, click. So that was one of my, best moments, childhood moments growing up. So, I just share that as my first time ever sharing this on a public stage like this. But, that was one of my proudest, most, fondest moments. And I was just being there for my brother at that time, because if I wasn't there, I don't know if my brother would have probably survived or lived. So good times. And then, like I said, ever since then, till this day, it's like one of those things where, blood is thicker than whatever, water, whatever the saying goes. So till that day, until now, my brother kind of like, doesn't trust a lot of folks anymore. We're clicking now. Anyhow, Good. That's my story. Thank you for listening.
All right. So, like, first off, Ati's a burly guy. And so, like, I don't know if there's Ati at any age that I would feel like I feel confident I could take him in a fight. So, I don't know what these guys are thinking. But so for me, like, all right, so a little background on me. I grew up in 29 Palms, California, little Marine-based town. If you know, you know. My dad was a science teacher at the junior high there. So chances are, if you attended the 29 Palms Junior High School between the 70s to the 90s, my dad was either your math or your science teacher. And so when I was a little kid growing up, I was attending 29 Palms Elementary, which was different building, just maybe, like a good lot away from the junior high, but within walking distance. But since the kindergarten started later in the day, my dad had to get in early to start prepping his class before school starts. He would just take me along with him. Like, just here's a little 5-year-old me. Like most high schools or junior highs, like the science room has a little closet, like walk-in closet area where they keep all their beakers and the chemicals and science stuff. And my dad had this little like 4-inch TV screen, black and white, like bunny, rabbit ear antennas and stuff. And, I would just my mom would put my cereal and milk in a little Tupperware container. So when my dad took me over and I just had to wait there until kindergarten started, I would just stay in that back room watching this little TV, and like usually it was really like the Flintstones or something, like very staticky black and white Flintstones are playing. And I'm just sitting in the back room eating. Well, one day this, one of his students, like, I don't know, overachiever or something, there before school starts, walks in and sees me back there. And she freaked out because she thought that Mr. Harmon, the science teacher, is keeping a little kid captive in the back room. so like, I thought nothing of it because I was just 5 years old, but I cracked up because one of my cousins went there and I think they heard the rumors. And then like at one point, my dad walked me out and introduced me to the two of his students that had stumbled upon me to introduce them. No, this is my son. He's just waiting for kindergarten to start. So that's my little story there.
That's funny.
Hysterical. I thought you were going to say that since he was a science teacher, they thought he shrunk himself and you were the mini teacher.
I'm walking around in his lab coat,
Yeah. Honey, I shrunk myself.
Yeah. Rick Moranis. That's funny. That's a good story.
So for me, I was born in American Samoa, born and raised there until I graduated and went to the Marine Corps. But growing up, there was this big field, open field in our village, right? This field is used for games and ceremonies. And for us, the kids of the village, we come together and play sports. It could be soccer, rugby, football. But we would play until it was sundown. And at sundown, around 6, there would be a curfew. And you'll hear the curfew when the bell is rang. And when the bell is rang, you better freeze wherever you are. You cannot move. You have to freeze and sit down, because during that time, every village, especially each household, they're having their evening prayers. So in American Samoa, it's very religious. Everyone's saying their prayers, singing their songs. And the only time you can get up and move is after the third bell. So this first bell, you stop. Second bell, you'll know it's halfway. And then the third bell, you're released. So wherever you are. So after the third bell, you're released. But by then, it'll be nighttime. So I remember as a kid, in American Samoa, there's only a 2-way street throughout the whole island. And the cars travel at 25 miles per hour. Can you imagine going 25 miles per hour throughout the whole island? That's the speed. That's a max speed limit on the island. So at nighttime, every few, I would say 50 feet, there's a light pole. And that light pole will light up the streets because everything is basically dark. And at that time as a kid, I was very scared of spirits and ghosts, because in American Samoa, we're very superstitious. A lot of people are, even though Christianity is there, but a lot of people still tell those stories and have those beliefs. So the only time as I'm going home, I would wait for a car to pass by, and I'll sprint behind that car to the next light pole until I get to, because it was like a 15-minute walk to my house. Wow. So over there we walked, we took the buses. So it was, for me, it was a memory because when I think about it, I was this little kid who was scared out of his mind, just running after vehicles because that was the only source of light on the
That's
road.
funny.
So that's my story growing up as a kid. So
I
That's
love it.
funny.
It's like, go to the light. That would be me. Frankie knows I'm the biggest chicken. I'd be freaking out.
And she'd be driving faster than 25 miles an hour, I'll tell you that.
You too, buddy.
This is true. Hmm. Oh, that's funny. So seeing that I brought it up, telling you my background growing up in Detroit and how I got into radio, or I think one of the big reasons that I got into radio, a pivotal or not, a memorable moment for me was I was about our boy's age now. So we have a 7-year-old boy, Axel, and I was about maybe a little younger. I was 6 or 7. And I'll never forget my dad. He just installed these dimmer switches at the house. So this is back in the 70s. He was proud of it, right? So he lowers the lights to kind of set the mood. And my dad was born in 1937. So he grew up in the 40s listening to radio, those old time radio shows. And he was so stoked and happy. And he created this one moment, and he turns the dimmer switches down, gets the lights all low, and he said, I want you to close your eyes, use your imagination. He said, when I was your age, we didn't have TV. We had radio, old-time radio shows. And he had these records. And he put on the first record, I want to say it was the Lone Ranger, and then he put on the Green Hornet, and all these old-time radio shows that were in the 30s and the 40s. And it was one after the next. And it was hours that we sat there listening to just comedies and dramas, and that became our thing. Until the day that I moved away and moved out for radio, I left the house at about 20, leaving for Florida, but up to 20 years old. I mean, I went to broadcasting school. I was working in radio, I was still green in radio, but that was still our thing. As a late teen, 20-year-old kid, before I moved out, we would sit down and listen not only to music, but it was these old-time radio shows. So my dad passed away right before our little boy was born. It was February 9th, 2016. Axel was born August 30th, 2016. We were lucky enough to be able to move my mom and dad out here to Salt Lake. So I had a few, really good years with my dad before he passed away. But when we moved out, I remember I flew one way out to Detroit, so I could drive them back, and we got the moving truck off, and then we put the last bit of stuff in the car. And my dad actually had the nerve to say to me, he was like, I was going to throw these away. Do you want them? And these were the records that I grew up listening to. And I'm sure I figured this out in my 30s that, oh my gosh, I'm a slow learner. I'm like, that was probably one of the big reasons that I got into radio. But I still have those records today. So they're very special to me. That was a very special time just growing up, and I've had several chances before my dad passed away to thank him, for giving me the love that he had no idea. He just loved that medium so much, and he passed it along to me. He didn't even realize that he was, and I didn't either, that he was igniting a spark in me. So that's kind of since we were talking about that and kind of where I started from and where I came from, that kind of stuck out, I guess. That's my moment.
No, that's pretty amazing. My dad also has a love for that medium too.
Thank you.
He still reflects on when he was a kid, and nobody had a TV, and he would they would listen to the boxing matches. They love. He said, back in my day, the heavyweight champion was the toughest guy in the world, and we would listen to all their matches. It's just such a cool medium because what a time, yeah. So. Right. That's great.
You have to paint the pictures, that's the whole thing. And that's kind of where, when we started and when I got into radio, and then when Jess and I hooked up in 2005, I mean, that's always been our mantra. We try to paint the pictures, and we tell stories and share our lives, but you constantly try to paint that picture, to people that are listening.
Gosh, it's hard for me to pick a moment, so I'm just going to I'm going to splice a few. My dad worked really hard. He had 3 jobs growing up to give us the life that he wanted us to have, better than he had. So we had a lot of fun. He taught us to work hard and to play hard harder. So they would take us on trips to Hawaii and California and Vegas. And we really kind of had the all-American childhood. We really did, because my dad worked his ass off. And he was gone a lot of the time, but my mom, thank God, was there for us, because my sister and I were both dancers and in sports and really, really involved. But I think some of the special moments, my dad had like a show truck. My love of cars and trucks comes from my dad and my grandpa. And we would do these shows on Saturday mornings. And so we get up really, really early and go in his truck, and we'd be on the freeway, and I'd see people looking at us. And I was like, oh, this truck is so awesome. My dad was so fastidious with his cleaning. He's just an OCD guy, which I love, because I picked that up. Not as bad as he is, but, but I love cleanliness, like my dad, my grandma. But we were on the freeway, and people are just like honking and waving, because my dad had a really nice truck that he built and worked really hard on. And we go to these shows, and it was just me, my sister, my dad didn't have a son, so I was kind of like his stand-in boy. Even though I was really, really girly, I would, dust off the truck, and he'd buy me a donut, and I'm like, that's where it all went downhill, Dad. I'm like, thanks a lot for my love of donuts. I can't help myself anymore. But it was special to have those daddy-daughter moments on Saturday mornings with my dad, and he taught me how to take care of cars and to be good to your stuff that you work hard for, so you can keep it for a long time and respect it. During the summers, as I got older, we would have our boombox outside, and my besties would come over, and my dad worked really hard, and we were able to get a pool in the backyard. And so we just lived out there in Arizona. We just lived in the pool. I was like a fish, and I loved it. I loved growing up in the sun and with my girlfriends and the music, and we'd go down the street and get Slurpees. I mean, just good, innocent times. And I'm grateful, because as we got older, my mom started working too, and they really busted their asses for us so we could have a really, really good life. And so I'm really appreciative of what they did for us.
Let's talk concrete cutting, and who better to go than All Pro Concrete Cutters, owned by the one and only Thomas Fadiliu. They are pros with over a decade of experience, so you know you're in good hands. Whether it's big or small, residential or commercial, they've got the skills and the tools for any job. Thomas Fadiliu and his team take pride in their work, making sure your project is done right and on time. No cutting corners here, just precision and passion. Give them a call at 801-834-8835. Go with All Pro Concrete Cutters for top-notch results. All Pro Concrete Cutters, your dreams cut to perfection. Thank you for sharing. Now, you two have been in radio together since 2005. That's 18 years, right? And probably even before that. But can you tell us what are some of your favorite moments on air?
Favorite moments is what, for me, is when I can make Jess laugh almost uncontrollably. And I love that, to the point where we wait for her to stop laughing. So that's, to me, I love that. I love hearing a laugh. She has an infectious laugh. It's just fun. It's fun for me, it's, I don't know, that's one of the ways that we connect with people, is you're having fun, right? You're just making each other laugh. And it's almost like we've had people say this to us, like they're there with us in the room, and we're all just in this conversation, and, or maybe they're standing back and listening to it. But yeah, I don't know. I just love making Jess laugh. We have a really good time together, and it's been even lighter since all the stuff that we kind of left behind us in this new venture that we started. It seems like a whole new birth. Wouldn't you agree, Jess? It seems like we've been given this new lease.
Oh, big time. And it is. I feel the same way. When Frankie gets me going and then I hear his laugh, it makes me laugh harder, because I love when he laughs. It just brings me so much joy. But yeah, we do have a good time together, and I love that our relationship continues to grow. I mean, Frank has an amazing wife and son, and I have an amazing husband and son, and that our families are just kind of fused together, and we're all one big family, and we get to hang out with Frankie's ma and his brother and, his wife's family, and vice versa. When my parents come into town, they want to see Frankie. I mean, it's just a neat family, like little village, we say, that we have kind of formed with our friends, family, and our listeners. So as far as moments on air, there's been so many. I mean, over the years, we've interviewed a lot of really amazing people. We've worked with a lot of amazing people. It's hard to kind of pinpoint one, but yeah, I think laughing together and just our bond and how strong we are, we really are like siblings. We have a lot of similarities and then a lot of differences that we respect about each other that kind of makes us think. And I really like that. I love that I can lean on him and vice versa. it's really cool because it was, like I said, just me and my sister. So he's a brother I didn't have but always wanted, and God knew that. So it's pretty cool.
Now, that's pretty excellent. And it's like, I think that's probably one thing that probably helped you guys be so successful is you guys have this very legitimate synergy. Like you weren't, nobody listens to you and thinks like, oh, this was just some corporate think tank said, hey, get this guy and get this woman. And like, they'll match. Like, no, you guys actually click. You're actually friends. You actually get along. And that's something I feel like, you can't just throw that together like, in some cold corporate way. And it's that warmth that I'm positive your audience feels. And it's probably why a lot of them have continued to follow you into your journey. And now, even speaking of that, like I'm sure that same bond and that support that you feel for each other, I'm sure that helped you a lot with what is essentially the focal point of your podcasting career, which is essentially being laid off. Like I know, Jess, you referred to it as a layoff. Frankie, you called it a firing. And
Right.
so like, I don't know if you both come to terms with the term firing now, or if you still are back and forth. But anyways, going on to that, I just wanted to throw it to you. Like I said, that being the focal points of your podcasting career, how did you essentially cope with laying off, because you had a very long and successful career as an endearing duo to locals in Utah radio?
Yeah, that was tough. And as you know, or maybe people that are watching this don't know, it was very abrupt for us. I mean, we were, I'd say fired, but Jess still says laid off. But we were let go very quickly. Came back from vacation, did that Monday morning show. Within about they separated us. 8 minutes, I was fired. They brought Jess in. About 8 minutes, she was fired. And it was like, you can only take with whatever you can take within your reach. And then they walked us out. And it was traumatizing. It was horrific. So the fact that, it happened the way it happened, if I didn't have, and we've talked about this, if I didn't have Jess with that, we were there, no question. We were there when we were going through, some really tumultuous times at the radio station. So we've been a lifeline for each other for a long, long time. But it was that and then some when it happened, and we chose to do this and go this route. But it was very therapeutic as we were recording the episodes and just kind of going through and processing through. But yeah, if I didn't have Jess, I don't know. I mean, I truly don't know what it would have been. It would have been pretty, and it got dark at times, but if we didn't have each other, it would have been really, really bleak.
I agree. I think we already had a good foundation, but it just strengthened our bond. I mean, we're best friends. We talk to each other about everything, and just, it was, if you have to get walked out, it's nice to have your buddy with you, because I thought when they were letting him go, once they had told me, I was like, oh shoot, like what am I going to do? Because we were each other's life raft for many years. I mean, from 2020 on, and things started before then that we don't really discuss on our show because of privacy issues with other people. But from 2020 to 23, it was really hard. And there's a lot of hard that happens in life, and there's always a reason for it. And you don't always know at the time, but I was praying every day for God to do something, because we weren't utilizing our talents anymore. We were giving our all from an empty tank, and it was the way we were treated. It was the way we were coached. It was the way we were ignored. There's so many things that happened in those few years that it was a pressure cooker. And the best thing they could have done was let us go. And now that we're free, it's the most amazing feeling. I told my husband today, we were leaving church, and I said, I finally can put into words how this feels. When people would say to me before, oh, I listened to the show, especially the last few years we were there, I would cringe, because I knew it wasn't our best work. I knew it wasn't our heart 100% in that anymore. And that doesn't feel good. And it feels like your soul is slowly dying. And that sounds dramatic, but it felt so uncomfortable. It felt so uncomfortable to be there anymore. And so the best thing they did was release us. And when people run into us in public and they're like, I'm loving the podcast, it re-energizes me, because we're able to speak more freely and from the heart, and we give our all even more so than we could before. And they know our good, bad, and ugly, and they still love us. And there's just something to be said about that. It's really a priceless gift that we get to do what we do together and to have people follow us and believe in us. I mean, there's just no greater life.
I concur 100%.
All right, yeah, I was about to, ask a question on, your pathway from there. You get that little break, I would say, I would term it. So, and then you guys fell onto the podcasting realm. Did you guys ever thought about going into that space? I know, Jessica, you kind of touched up on it as far as, it's like a rewarding, blessing, I would say. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but, how did you guys come across starting the podcast, and how's it been so far, in this process?
It's been awesome. So we had a podcast, like our show had a podcast. And people would say to Frankie and myself over the years, you guys should have a show. You should do especially when podcasts started to get bigger and more traction. And we're like, okay, well, we're kind of in contracts and have mortgages and families. Like we can't just go off on our own right now, which is kind of nice that they laid us off because it forced us to use what we are using now and we're loving it. But yeah, it was, we had other offers from other radio stations that reached out immediately, which was really, really flattering. And we were honored, and it was very humbling. At the same time, we were just like, whoa, cool. People like us. we're doing good still, even though, we didn't think we were anymore because of how things went down. But yeah, we just knew that we wanted to continue doing a show together. We wanted more freedom and flexibility. And we knew going into another radio station would have a lot of constraints that we had from before. And so we just didn't want to do that. We wanted to do something different.
We figured it was the time, the timing of it, the way it happened. I mean, if I could go back and change anything, I wish they would have just been humane about it and just came to us like people that literally invested their hearts and souls into that company for a long time. We did it for decades. And it's like, if they would have just come to us and said, look, it's not working. Let's kind of part ways. Let's do this professionally, and just like giving you the common courtesy is, like I said, just being humane, right? Letting us go and then giving us a time frame, like a week or two or whatever, we could at least say goodbye to our listeners, and they didn't do that. So that's the part that really hurts our hearts, is the way they did it. But like Jess said, and like what you were saying, Michael, it truly was, and we could see it. It just took us maybe a little longer to see that it was this gift from the universe, this blessing in disguise. As the dust settled, we could see it like, okay, this is what we talked about it for years. We'd had people telling us, like Jess said, you guys need to do a podcast, but we just couldn't. The timing was it was off. So we kind of figured that this was a blessing in disguise, and we were going to take the chance. This is like the time to take the chance on ourselves. And we did believe in ourselves, but like Jess said, I mean, but then there's that whole, the way it happened. So there was a lot of doubt there because we were in that for a while, that really toxic kind of environment. So you really start to question and doubt yourself. And even though we knew deep down, like, okay, well, we're pretty sure we're supposed to be doing this, but then you kind of go through these moments of, are we though? Do they, is this going to work? But ultimately, yeah, I mean, we could just tell as we started you remember, Jess, like that first episode, it was a little rough. We were like, okay, we think we remember talking in longer forms and long breaks. And then second episode, third episode, it just felt like, oh my gosh, we remember this. And by that, I mean, we remember talking, because we used to have long talk breaks back in the day. We didn't play barely any music on the show. So it was like coming back to us, like, this is what we remember and what we loved. And then as we're kind of, talking about what had happened and the highs and the lows and just processing through it. But yeah, we could tell that we still had something special, if not even more special. The fact that we had this longer talk form now that we're able to go into this. We figured we wanted to be in an audible space, but this is probably going to be the best space for us as far as audible.
So true. And I know, our spouses are super supportive, and my husband, Kevin, was behind the scenes, just like you and Frank need to do this. You need to do this. You guys are good enough. You guys are good together. You've got chemistry. You guys are so good at what you do, and you love what you do, and you have so much support behind you. And so I'm so grateful for him kind of pushing me, because, you just feel kind of lost, especially like Frankie said, the way things went down and leading up to it. But It's been great. I mean, we started kind of recording the time capsule, we call it the roller coaster of emotion, because we weren't allowed to talk to anybody. We both had contracts. I had a 3-month deal after I was walked out. Frankie had a 6-month deal after he was walked out. And so we had to kind of lay low, but we could do stuff behind the scenes. And those episodes are pretty telling of how we were feeling and the ups and the downs. And some days he was like up and good to go, and I was having a down day, and so he'd pick me up. I mean, that's what's so great about our relationship, is one of us can be off and the other one pulls the other one up. And it's a cool, just brother sisterhood that we have. But people are listening to podcasts. I mean, the thing is, people aren't listening to radio for music anymore. They're going to Apple, Spotify. They're doing their own playlist. My son's 16. In his car, he doesn't listen to the radio. People want more choices and freedom and flexibility. And so it just made sense for us to go to podcasts. People want to hear a longer, talk episode, if you will, and not just little 2 minutes here and there. They want the full story. They want to have a conversation and connection.
Well, and I think that's, the neat thing about it, first off, it's their loss, your gain, and not just yours, but everybody else. Because now you're basically taking what everybody loved about you in the Utah area and bringing it to the rest of the world. You've got your old following still there. I'm sure they're rolling with you, and they're happy to have you back in a more free format. But at some point, I think maybe, at some point, radio just going to contain you guys, because first off, you had a lot going for you. You both are a living debunk of the old phrase, you have a face made for radio. Now you guys were made for the camera as well. So, welcome to that side of things. But second of all, look, you actually bring something, I think, to the podcast sphere that let's admit 99% of podcasters don't have, and that's an actual knowledge of the profession, I believe, because most of us are like, look, the internet is a great thing, but the floodgates opened and now everybody with a microphone thinks they can broadcast. You guys actually cultivated an audience for 20 plus years, with something that is not easy, you have that energy. I don't know how you do it. You guys you're bouncing off each other constantly. From the episodes I've listened to, from the interviews I've listened to, you're always on. I go back and look at our own episodes and I'm just like, man, why am I still talking?
Stop.
It's come on, dude. Dude, wake up, come on. Or sometimes it's oh, dude, calm down. But you guys, you got it just right. But that's what I mean, though. It's we're figuring it out, and I'm happy to figure it out. You guys bring something of an air of professionalism to a medium that's mostly amateur, not to say you can't be amateur and be successful, but it's kind of a breath of fresh air, and it's something that makes you guys stand out, I believe. So,
thank you.
Means a lot.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you
sweet,
so
man.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys picked up podcasting, because there are never too many podcasts. There are a lot of stories that need to be told, and each story is unique. That's why our podcast has evolved to telling the stories of all veterans, the Pacific culture and people, and small businesses. And what I found and what I've able to relate to with your podcast is your stories a lot of people can relate to, especially me. In 2015, I worked for a company called Union Pacific in North Platte, Nebraska. For a year and a few months, I hustled for this company, gave them my all, and for them to just lay off thousands of us because the economy wasn't doing bad, at that time, they laid off about 15% of the workforce, which is thousands of people across the U.S. And I was part of that number that was laid off. And they didn't even acknowledge us who've worked for them. And, because we weren't allowed to take time off. It was frowned upon to take time off, especially if you're sick or anything. So they called me one day. I was sitting having our little lunch with the missionaries in Nebraska. We were eating spicy noodles, right? And suddenly I got this call. They told me, hey, you're fired. You're laid off. We need you to come tomorrow morning. Grab your stuff. Everyone in the room thought I've seen a ghost or something, because my job basically was dropped. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do. How was I supposed to provide for my family in the middle of nowhere? So the next day, I went into the facility. No one greeted us. The only person who confronted us was a union rep.
Wow.
We did not see any supervisors, no nothing. They just took us to our lockers. We cleaned it out, walked us out. So that made me, we were just a number to this corporate, business, this company. So that made me just change my whole approach in life. In every job that I work in now, I'm just a number. I'll basically do what I want. Like, I work on Hill Air Force Base now. It's a government job and it's stable. And I'm just doing like the minimum just to go by, because I know that we are all numbers on this, so the point is, us, the people, can relate to you guys, what you guys have been through. The people love you. The community love you. My daughters love you. They always ask me, put on Frankie and Jess. I'm like, wait till the next episode comes on Thursday. so we were pretty much caught up. But there are some episodes that I had to look ahead, like the Boom Boom Room, that I can't.
I knew it.
Show to my kids.
Sorry,
but it's still good for the whole family to listen to. So that's what I love about your podcast and what your platform brings to the table.
And I just want to point out real quick too, the cool thing about that story is that's what actually brings us all full circle, because that sad story that Michael just shared with us of him getting laid off, that's what eventually brought him to Utah. And that's what, and him having work here, driving to work and listening to you guys in the radio, that's how he found you guys. And so it just really, it's a bummer, but that is what ultimately brought him full circle. And here we are today. So
I love that. We talk about that all the time. Nothing's used in vain, right? Like, as scary as it sounds, and how am I going to provide and what's next? There's also like a calmness of, okay, where I wasn't serving me, and I deserve better, and better is coming. And so it's just getting through that tough part, and then you see the better and you're like, okay, this is what it was all about.
A lot of things, just on the topic of, things happen for different reasons. And we all know God has, it moves in different ways. And at the end of the day, there's always, the brightness at the end of the tunnel. A lot of situations in the past, in my own personal life, I had a lot of things happen to me. Started a business, getting out of the military, didn't have any projects or anything like that, but starting a business brand new, didn't even know nothing about business. And then, just letting it happen. And that's how I operate majority of my time in the world today. I let things happen. And if it happens, it happens. If it's positive, it's positive. If it's negative, I'll look at it and like, move on. That's how I operate nowadays. With the whole podcasting where I'm in here with Behind the Lava, I love this format. And the reason why is because we can say anything. This is a platform where, we can say anything. Nobody's going to tell us, hey, you can't say this or that, So, and I'm pretty sure, and that's how, and where I'm hearing, that's how, in that corporate stage where you guys were limited, in some formats, or, I wouldn't say, filtered per se, but, in this stage, I could share my stories, say whatever I want, but at the same time, be consistent. Anyhow, at the end of the day, I love the space of podcasting, just because, now I've never, when Tan approached me about this a year ago now, I never thought I was going to be on this space, honestly, because I come from a medical background. I thought I was going to go into the hospital and, do all this, which that's still my goal today. But I've never thought that I was going to be on this platform speaking, my opinion out there. Not that it matters, but I really appreciate it, So at the end of the day, thank you for you guys for hopping on here and joining us. That's that's one of those things. And without Tan, I would have never met you guys. So I appreciate it. Now now I'm a follower now. He shared it with our with our group, and now I'm like, hey man, I love that 6-year-old story. So I'm like, whoa, okay, I like that. I want to keep listening. If you don't,
thank you.
So yeah, okay, thank you guys.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. Yeah, we appreciate that. We're all in the business of connection. That's kind of what we like to say. I mean, you guys as well. You guys are connecting to people, and that's what it's all about, man. That's what life is all about, is connecting, right? And that's, I think, where, especially in this world that we live in. And don't get me wrong, I love technology. I mean, technology right now, this is bringing us together, right? But it's a slippery slope. It's a fine line with it, right? If we let it go where it's going, it can really disconnect us. And it's things like this that truly do connect us, right? Connect people, sharing the stories. You know, we're visually seeing each other, or if it's in the audible space, you're still connecting to people. And we're in the business of connection, man. And we need that.
It's so true. And like you said, and people do want to hear your stories because, like you were saying, Michael, like, stories need to be told, and it's every single human being, not just some people. And so that's what's kind of neat with the platforms, right? There's people we wouldn't have normally heard from, but now we get to hear from. And I think that's cool because back in the day, Frankie and I know this, it was just movie stars and TV and radio. I mean, they were the voices for everybody, and that's not always true. And so I love that there's other platforms. You know, Justin Bieber, how he got into the business, it was like YouTube or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just neat that we get to hear from more people, and that's just more connection, like Frankie's saying. And it's so, we're a lot more relatable than we think about or give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, and even you think about in the last couple of years, we had, you know, the corporate, the suits, and when they were making the changes, they were literally taking our guests away and saying people don't want to hear that. And we knew deep down that that's not the case. I mean, we did our show very well for years, and we knew how to connect with people. And then they started taking that ability away from us, and we just knew that was kind of the death of it. We could feel it, like, oh boy. And like Jess said, I mean, speaking of which, I mean, it felt like we were slowly dying inside when they were taking more and more of that connection time away from us. It's like, how are we supposed to connect with listeners in 45 seconds? And we're not allowed to have guests on, and we're very community oriented. And it's like, we want to highlight whether it's this organization or this person trying to get the word out. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Community. And when you have big companies trying to put the kibosh on that, saying that we know better, this is what they want. They want 11 songs an hour. And like Jess said, streaming services, you know, left and right, you can get your music anywhere and have playlists. People aren't tuning in, you know, especially that time of the morning, our type of a show, they're not tuning in for the music. And it's just, we knew that for years in our gut. And then, yeah, so I think this is the best thing. I mean, ultimately it is going back to the blessing in disguise, the gift from the universe. We love it. We're embracing it, man. We love this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Top Gun Home Inspection, a leading home inspection company in Utah. When it comes to home inspections, details matter. That's why Top Gun Home Inspection is committed to providing thorough and meticulous services. From the foundation to the roof, their experienced inspectors leave no stone unturned. They offer a range of services, ensuring that every aspect of your home is safe and up to standard. So, whether you're buying a new home or just want to keep your current one in top shape, trust Top Gun Home Inspection. Remember, a detailed home inspection today can save you from costly repairs tomorrow. Top Gun Home Inspection, where your home's health is our top priority.
No, that's excellent. You know, I'm always of the opinion that, you know, putting limiters on artists and creatives is never a good thing. You know, it's like maybe there's some exceptions where you can, like, you know, challenge them to work through those, but I'm of the opinion it's never a good thing. So now on that track, so now here you are, you just busted through the door, you're in the podcasting world. I'd like to know, like, what would you say your aspirations for the future are? Like, where do you want to take this? And ultimately, what's your goal? And what do you want to accomplish with your podcast?
Oh, that's so fun. We love that stuff. I mean, eventually, right now, it's so awesome. Frankie has a studio set up in his music room at his house. So thank God we have that. And he acquired all the equipment, so we're able to do the show there. But I know we've talked about it'd be nice to have our own podcast studio one of these days, and even a space where other podcasters could come and have a space, because people aren't very techie or they can't afford the equipment. So it'd be nice, speaking of community, to have our offices and our studio and maybe have people come in there almost like a gym. They swipe their card and they go do their show and they maybe, go on with their day. But it'd be nice to help other people and kind of maybe mentor other podcasters that maybe don't have the background and foundation that we do. We've talked about opening a restaurant one of these days for our fans to go, and we'd have really fun plates like Cooper's ham and cheese or Axel's chicken fingers, and just to really bond the community even more, a space where everybody can hang out and gather. And we're really excited about the future. And the podcast has been going extremely well. We are so, so grateful.
Overwhelmed with gratitude. And again, it goes right back to the community, right? This is what we love, this place. We don't want to go anywhere. We love it. We want to stay put. If it goes outside, like Spence, what you were saying, like because we are getting people outside of Utah that are listening, that's icing on the cake. And that's great. We love people all around the world to be listening to us. But I mean, this is where we want to be. This is where we are. We love Utah.
Yep.
And speaking of Utah, we live in Utah, and I'm sure you've come across some Pacific Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys share some of your experiences, your thoughts, and your personal connection experiences with Pacific Islanders that you've come across?
Well, when I moved here in '97, I'd never been west of the Mississippi. So I'd never come and then I moved to Utah. And for me personally, like I said, everything was new about Utah, but I quickly met a lot of Pacific Islanders that were listeners of ours. And then just the best people. I don't even know. I mean, you're part of the reason that I fell in love with this community. And when I say fell in love, within 2 weeks, I said out loud, I do not want to go anywhere. I want to retire here. I just felt this, I don't know, I felt like it was my home. So other than that, I connect to all the people here, especially Pacific Islanders. I mean, we have so many listeners from so many different parts of the Pacific that are just, you can just tell. I mean, the salt of the earth, just the best people, family oriented. I mean, that's what, that's where I come from, and just family and just caring about the community. And yeah, so that's kind of my story. I don't really have a direct connection other than that. I mean, I'd never met any Pacific Islanders before I came to Utah.
And the biggest hearts. So my son's 16, he played football, he's on the hockey team, and it's just the hearts and the gathering and the food.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so welcoming, and we've so enjoyed it. And coming from Arizona, we didn't have a lot of Pacific Islanders where I grew up, so that was awesome to come here and just feel the love and the warmth and the sense of community and family. Even though we're not blood family, we're family, and you guys are just so warm and inviting, and that's been really huge for my family because we don't have any blood relatives here besides the three of us. And so to play in the sports arenas and have that kind of family has been huge.
Yeah, I was going to say that both of you guys are from the East Coast, now coming towards the center, and now you found this warmth in Utah. Now, my experiences was a little bit different. When I was stationed in Virginia, and this was in Quantico, and I used to go up and down the coast. I think it was I-69, I believe. I don't know if I'm right, Frankie. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyhow,
probably 95, maybe
95.
I-95.
Yeah, I-95. Yeah, I-95. So my experience there was kind of different. It was so so the bubbles are bigger over there for some reason. And it was so I would say hostile. And not only that, it was just like everybody was into their own thing. I was trying to speak. I'm from the islands, where our bubbles are so close. Like you got to hug me, and in order for me to say, that's just the life it was. I didn't know about racism until I got to the States, and I left it. I left at a young age, went back down, and I left the military in 2008. But I've never really felt racism until around those parts. I mean, I'm not saying anything about the people or anything. That's how I've never felt that. And then when I was there, it was kind of weird. And then, but overall, my point is, anywhere you go, you try to establish some sort of familiarity. And as you were saying, Frankie, you got there, you loved it. People treating you nice. Food is perfect because in our culture, we love eating. If you show me or point to me a Pacific Islander that weighs 180, that's I want to meet that guy. But we love to eat. We love to eat, and I mean, that's Spencer, he's not a buck 80. Spencer's like 200, 210. So, But yeah, and so that was my experience, and it was really weird. And going forward, are you guys, thinking about? I mean, aside from the regular, startups and stuff like that, are you guys thinking about getting any, starting anything with the community as far as like Pacific Islanders or anything like that in Utah? Like, I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar. We're doing our annual veterans dinner, so are you guys thinking about something like that within your own realm podcast as far as with the community?
Absolutely. And I think we're only, a little less than 2 months into kind of finding our groove with the show. And so once things get a little bit more stable and we're rolling out the show, we definitely love connecting with our listeners and putting on events and, raising money for charity and getting out in the community and doing fun things and getting the whole family involved. So yeah, definitely in the future, we'll have more of a staff to kind of help us facilitate this, because we're kind of mom and pop shop for now, but as we grow, we absolutely have big plans for the community and just to get out and connect.
Still in the building stage, huh?
Yeah.
No, we can definitely relate. It's like this. Sometimes, like, we get these big dreams. Mainly Michael, he's the visionary of the whole group. I'm just like, but we're, you want to get out and do as much as you can, but it's like, all right, we're not on that level yet, but we'll do what we can at this level. But but it's onward and upward, as we've all been. Basically, I think has been the theme of this interview is like, out with something that was holding us back, and it's onward and upward, and we're taking other people with us. So that's great.
Yeah.
So true.
I think kind of the hard thing with our podcast is that I know collectively as a group, we want to do so much, but it's so hard because we're located in different areas. Spencer's in Las Vegas, I'm here. And there's a lot of community events that Michael goes to in Utah. And I'm like, man, I wish I was there. I could be there. But, fortunately, we're away. And this is the only time that we get to actually talk, aside from our little group chat, off our sessions. But, other than that, I'm more of that, concept too as well. I love to get out there, engage, do a lot of stuff with the community. However, we're limited with our own areas. My area here in El Paso, very limited Pacific Islanders. There are a few retirees that came in and they retired here, called El Paso their home. But other than that, there's a big Mexican community here. And interestingly, they think that I'm Mexican, so I've been approached many times, with a lot of the local folks here speaking Spanish, and I'm like, hola, no speak español. So, I gotta, those are the only, words that I know so far. But other than that, really appreciate it, guys. This is pretty nice getting to talk with you guys tonight.
You're awesome. And it's late your time. It's like 11 o'clock. You are awesome.
So that reminds me of my favorite uncle's quote. His name is Bruce Lee. Absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add basically what is uniquely yours. So I'm very grateful for having you, Frankie and Jess. I just have one more question, because we love to ask our guests this question because we want to learn. Do you have any questions or advice for us here at Behind the Lava Lava?
Well, going back to the being a part with, if there's an event coming up in Utah, you guys could do like this there. So everybody from everywhere could be there at a part of this. I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but it's capable. It's possible. You have the capability to do it. You know what I mean? So people that, like, if there is something going on for Spence, and he's not, he's in Vegas and you're in Texas, you could definitely do something like this, maybe on a bigger scale, like get like a bigger screen TV, and that would be kind of cool. Seriously, to bring other people that might not be able to make it into, if something's going on here in Utah or Spence has something going on there, and you want like that, again, it's that connection. And we're able to do it. We're able to pull people in and visually have like this space and where you guys can interact, or if not, just watching and you feel like you're there.
That is so true. That would be awesome, because since the three of you are in different states, like Frankie's saying, you guys could hold events in each of your towns and then broadcast it, and you're all doing the same thing in a different space. I think that'd be really, really cool.
Yeah, it's doable.
That would be cool. I mean, look, That sounds like an amazing idea. The problem is that Michael goes to too many events that have really good food. And I don't know if I can stay on the screen watching him eat all the time. It's like,
That's
dude,
tough.
I want that. I want that. Why can't I be there?
Seriously.
Oh
Because
my
Michael
gosh.
finds the best spots, and I'm always jealous. I'm like, man, I gotta move back to Utah. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Where do
That's
you
funny.
where do you eat at, Michael? Where's the best place? My husband was upset today because after church we had to grab a quick bite before Bible study. Mo Betta's wasn't open and he was not happy. That's his favorite.
Oh, that's one thing about Polynesian places. They close on Sundays because they go to church.
I get that.
But if on weekdays, follow Natin But Grindz. I'm not sure if you know about that food truck. Natin But Grindz. You can check them out on Instagram. They serve one of the best Hawaiian street food out there. So check them out.
Okay.
Because they
Natin But
move
Grindz?
location to location. But it's Natin But Grindz. Natin. And the Grindz ends with a Z.
I love it.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
So we really appreciate you, Frankie and Jess, for again joining us today. Now you guys can add Behind the Lava Lava to your list of Pacific Islander connections, and
I
we
love
really
it.
appreciate you guys for tuning in with us. So how can our listeners find you on social media, or do you guys have a website?
So
No,
we do have a
we're
website.
everywhere.
Yeah. Listen to frankieandjess.com. That's our website. And then from there, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and then listen to Frankie and Jess on all social platforms. So Instagram, TikTok, X, or formerly Twitter, Facebook. So listen to Frankie and Jess.
And thank you guys for having us. Thanks for doing what you do and
Yeah.
inviting us. And thank you for your listeners listening. Like, this was such a huge honor. We were excited to talk to you guys, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, this was fun. And we'd love to be back on in the future. We're not putting you on the spot, but we're putting you on the spot. We'd love to be back on in the future.
That's right. But next time we'll meet with that food truck outside.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Most
Nothing but
definitely.
grind.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much. It's been a true pleasure getting to know you folks, and so it's such a great inspirational story. Like from the ashes, like the phoenix. So, but it honestly, thank you so much for sharing your journey, and can't wait to keep listening and tuning into what happens next.
Thank you.
Thank you. That
We
means
appreciate
a lot.
you guys.
Okay, to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Behind the Lava Lava. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow Behind the Lava Lava, drop a comment, and leave us a review. Remember to follow, listen to Frankie and Jess on Instagram and their socials, and also go ahead and subscribe on their podcast. This is Michael Tan and the team signing off from Behind the Lava Lava. Tofa Soifua.
Working on my interests, it's who I am. I'm trying to make these digits look like EINs. When the help ain't free, you all help me. Salute to folks who turn their names to LLCs. The wealth is in itself to help a non-profit. To be better women or better men, whether business by veterans or common folks with a dream. We're all born with the same strength. We tread waters that were untouched. Let's be on the same wavelength. Behind the lava, front of our eyes. Let our legacy live off it when we're up in the sky. All signs point to us to help someone make a difference. With God as my witness, cause talk business.